Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udire Shinvatam Swa Katha Krishna Punyashravanam Kirtana Hridiyantastha Vajrani Vidhanoti Suhitsatam Nashtaprayeshu Bhatreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttam Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Nashtaki. We're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 22, verses 44 and 45. Verse 44. Pranadhara Sata Brahman Grahascha Sa Parichada Rajyam Balam Mahi Kosha Iti Sarvam Niveditam. Synonyms: Prana, life; Dara, wife; Suta, children; Brahman, O great Brahmana; Griha, home; Cha, also; Sa, with; Parichadda, all paraphernalia; Rajyam, kingdom; Balam, strength; Mahi, land; Kosha, treasury; Iti, thus; Sarvam, everything; Niveditam, offered. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. The king continued, Therefore, my dear Brahmanas, my life, wife, children, home, furniture, and household paraphernalia, my kingdom, strength, land, and especially my treasury are all offered unto you. In some readings, the word dara is not used, but the word used then is raya, which means wealth. In India, there are still wealthy persons who are recognized by the state as Rai. A great devotee of Lord Chaitanya, Mahaprabhu, was called Ramananda Rai because he was governor of Madras and very rich. There are still many holders of the title Rai, Rai Bahadur, Rai Chaudhary, and so on. The Dara, or wife, is not permitted to be offered to the Brahmanas. Everything is offered to worthy persons who are able to accept charity. But nowhere it is found that one offers his wife. Therefore, in this case, the reading Raya is more accurate than Dara. Also, since Prithu Maharaj offered everything to the Kumaras, the word Kosh or treasury need not be separately mentioned. Kings and emperors used to keep a private treasury, which was known as Ratna Bhand. The Ratna Bhanda was a special treasury room which contained special jewelry such as bangles, necklaces, and so on, which were presented to the king by the citizens. This jewelry was kept separate from the regular treasury house where all the collected revenues were kept. Thus, Prithu Maharaj offered his stock of private jewelry to the lotus feet of the Kumaras. It has already been admitted that all the king's property belonged to the Brahmanas and that Prithu Maharaj was simply using it for the welfare of the state. If it were actually the property of the Brahmanas, how could it be offered again to them? In this regard, Sripad Sridhar Swami has explained that this offering is just like the servant's offering of food to his master. The food already belongs to the master, or the master has purchased it. But the servant, by preparing food, makes it acceptable to the master and thus offers it to him. In this way, everything belonging to Prithu Maharaj was offered to the Kumaras. Text 45. Sainapatyam cha rajyam cha danda netritvam eva cha sarvalokadhipatyam cha vedashastra vidarhati. Sainapatyam, post of commander-in-chief, cha, and rajyam, post of ruler over the kingdom, cha, and danda, ruling, netritvam, leadership, eva, certainly, cha, and sarva, all, lokadhipatyam, proprietorship of the planet, cha, and Veda Shastravit, one who knows the purport of Vedic literature, arhati, deserves. Since only a person who is completely educated according to the principles of Vedic knowledge deserves to be commander in chief, ruler of the state, the first to chastise or the proprietor of the whole planet, Prithu Maharaj offered everything to the Kumaras. Purport in this verse is very clearly stated that a kingdom, state, or empire must be governed under the instructions of saintly persons and brahmanas like the Kumaras. When monarchy ruled throughout the world, the monarch was actually directed by a board of brahmanas and saintly persons. The king, as the administrator of the state, executed his duties as a servant of the brahmanas. It was not that the kings or brahmanas were dictators, nor did they consider themselves proprietors of the state. The kings were also well versed in Vedic literatures and thus were familiar with the injunction of Sri Ishopnishad, Ishavarsham idam sarvam. Everything that exists belongs to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna also claims that he is the proprietor of all planetary systems, Sarvaloka Maheshwaram. Since this is the case, no one can claim to be proprietor of the state. The king, president, or head of the state should always remember that he is not the proprietor but the servant. In the present age, the king or president forgets that he is the servant of God and thinks of himself as servant of the people. The present democratic government is proclaimed to be a people's government, a government by the people and for the people. And this type of government is not sanctioned by the Vedas. The Vedas maintain that a kingdom should be governed by the purpose of satisfying the Supreme Personality of Godhead and should therefore be ruled by a representative of the Lord. The head of a state should not be appointed if he is bereft of all Vedic knowledge. In this verse, it is clearly stated, Veda Shastra with Arhati, that all high government posts are especially meant for persons who are well conversant with the teachings of the Vedas. In the Vedas, there are definite instructions defining how a king, commander in chief, soldier, and citizen should behave. Unfortunately, there are many so called philosophers in the present age who give instruction without citing authority, and many leaders follow their unauthorized instructions. Consequently, people are not happy. The modern theory of dialectical communism, set forth by Karl Marx and followed by communist governments, is not perfect. According to Vedic communism, no one in the state should ever starve. Presently, there are many bogus institutions which are collecting funds from the public for the purpose of giving food to starving people. But these funds are invariably misused. According to the Vedic instructions, the government should arrange things in such a way that there will be no question of starvation. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, it is stated that a householder must see to it that even a lizard or a snake does not starve. They also must be given food. In actuality, however, there is no question of starvation because everything is the property of the Supreme Lord. And he sees to it that there is ample arrangement for feeding everyone. In the Vedas, Katha Upanishad, it is said, Eko Bahunam Yo Vidhati Kaman. The Supreme Lord supplies the necessities of life to everyone, and there is no question of starvation. If anyone starves, it is due to the mismanagement of the so called ruler, governor, or president. It is clear, therefore, that a person who is not well versed in the Vedic injunctions, Veda Shastravit, should not run for election as president, governor, etc. Formerly, kings were Rajarishis, which meant that although they were serving as kings, they were as good as saintly persons because they would not transgress any of the injunctions of the Vedic scriptures and would rule under the direction of great saintly persons and Brahmanas. According to this arrangement, modern presidents, governors, and chief executive officers are all unworthy of their post because they are not conversant with Vedic administrative knowledge and they do not take direction from great saintly persons and Brahmanas. Because of this disobedience to the orders of the Vedas and the Brahmanas, King Vena, Prithu Maharaj's father, was killed by the Brahmanas. Prithu Maharaj therefore knew very well that it behooved him to rule the planet as the servant of saintly persons and Brahmanas. End of purport. Om Jnanatimirindasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah. Vanchakalpatarubhyasham Kripasindubhyev cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo. I offer my respectful obeisances to everybody present and having given me the opportunity to serve Srimad Bhagavatam, thereby purifying myself, having the opportunity to purify myself. So these two verses that we just read, they point towards administration, how a state, how a country, how the world in large should be administered by the various administrators and the head of the administration. So the directions to the sub-administrators come from the head, and those people are supposed to follow through with whatever instructions are given. So we see in every country, instructions come from the top, from the prime minister, president, where there is monarchy, from the kings or the heir apparent or so-called Yuvaraj in those kingdoms. Such instructions earlier used to be in compliance with the Vedas, the Vedic teachings. Here Prithu Maharaj is offering everything to the Kumaras, the Brahmanas, his kingdom, his treasury, in charity to them. So, the object of charity, the people who are supposed to receive charity, very clearly defined are the Brahmanas, the people who are the educators, people who are the brain of the society. The society can be characterized as it is Chaturvarnyam Maya system, Guna Karma Vibhagasha. So the society is as such divided into 4 Varnas and 4 Ashramas. 4 Varnas, Brahmanas, Kshatriya, Vaishyas, Shudras, 4 Ashramas, Sannyasashram, Vanaprasthashram, and then Grihasthashram and Brahmacharya. So everybody, it says in Bhagavad Gita, can attain perfection by following the Varnashrama system. But everybody is given a chance to uplift themselves, progress through the Varnashrama system, and they can, even a Shudra can attain the position of a sannyasi by following his regulative duties properly and gradually coming up. Shudras can be brahmachari and they can be grihastha and they can be vanaprastha and they can be sannyasis also, provided they have accepted a guru and have started following in certain point of time the Vedic teachings. In today's time, Prabhupada says practically everybody is a Shudra. So Prabhupada during his mission speeches used to speak that I am trying to create some first quality Brahmanas. And he chose people from the Western world where he converted so many hippies, so many people who had no knowledge about the Vedic system, Vedic teachings. And he created so-called Brahmanas, first quality, first, and elevated them to the position of sannyasis also. I mean, they followed through with all the regulative principles and they qualified themselves. Of course, one cannot be just given a Brahminical thread and say that you are a Brahmana now and you go and go teach. No, there is a process. So you have to go through the Vedic teachings. For that purpose, Prabhupada translated the most important Shastras, Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, Ishwapanishad, the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, so many other books that are serving as the foundation for achieving the position, elevated position of a Brahmana and that of a sannyasi. So once you have these things, in a very crude way, we also understand that in the Western world, we see that Krishna's system of Varnashrama still prevails. Sometimes you see a very large donation is given to educational institutions from the Kshatriyas or the Vaishyas, the business people or the administrators, like to big universities, Harvard, Stanford, and others. Fundings are given to them, even in India and other places as well. Funding comes from the administration. So those educational institutions can be considered as like Brahmanas. So the charity goes to the Brahmanas. So here we also see that charity is given to the offered to the Brahmanas. And it's not that the Brahmanas are going to use that charity for their subsistence. After all, you need only so much for your subsistence, and the rest is again offered back into the society. In this country, in the USA, we notice that there is a game sports called fishing. In fishing, people go out to catch fish. They catch fish, but they again release it back into the water. So our system is such that we can also accumulate wealth, we can also accumulate possessions, but at the end, it is again in a good state, in good faith, given back to the society. So the society keeps progressing. And the best way to give it back to the society is to give it to the Brahmana or Brahmanical institutions or Vedic institutions, the temples, for the flourishing of the Vedic teachings. So that's how we understand that how this whole cycle, even from the cycle of uh, procurement of grain, also it is mentioned that rain comes from water, water comes from rain. So the rain, grain, grain is eaten, sperms again production, and again, you know, the whole cycle, the ecological system, the cycle also continues like that. So anything that we think like, is for our sense gratification, that is acting contrary to the rule. So eventually it will be taken away. So, so we should, while we are alive, while we are sane, while we are following the teachings, we should make all effort to, to see that keeping certain portion aside for our subsistence and the rest we can recycle back into the society, back into the institution, brahmanas. And the brahmanas, they are the one who know best how to utilize such charity for the betterment of the society. But if people start to think that no, this is for my sense gratification, and I am going to enjoy, with this, with that, with this paraphernalia, with that paraphernalia, with this many women and that and this and that, then that is a disruption. Then that gets taken away by the law of the Supreme Lord eventually. So you might see like untimely deaths. You might see that, okay, people have accidents, people have, you know, no children to give up to, or the state, bring some kind of a case against them and assert the property. Uh, but today's time, Kali Yuga, everybody is not in the right frame of mind to understand the Vedic injunctions in a sane manner, in a balanced manner, and do the right thing. The politicians are barely any politician who is a Kshatriya. So, so we have to take lessons from our Shastras and depending upon our qualities, mode of nature we are situated and our, you know, particular tendency towards a particular varna, like whether we are conducting ourselves as a Kshatriya or a Brahmana or a Vaishya, we should act according to the Shastras, the teachings of the Vedas, and thereby be a positive contributor to the society, where society at large can be successful, can be happy, and peace will prevail. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity. Once